Why? Jangan masuk. Aku tak masuk, that's why.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to all our attendees, and welcome to the RegTech Innovation Summit 2021. Today, we are covering, I think, topic of interest to everybody, and that is a fireside chat about the implementation of artificial intelligence within the context of regulatory technology. Now, overseeing this fireside chat today would be Mr. Andrew Glover, who is with the International Compliance Association. Mr. Andrew joined the IAC as a Global Director of Education and Training in 2006, and he's spent really many years operating within the compliance space. Now he is taking the role as the Chief Examiner and Director of Compliance Education, which focuses upon the content and delivery of ICA programs, as well as the assessment aspects of it. So today he'll be diving deep into this implementation of AI, and Andrew, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, so having spent sort of the last 10, 11 years in Singapore, providing the training and education, this has obviously been a subject that has quite simply sort of exploded in recent years. And I thought it'd be worth just setting the scene. A couple of things about this. First of all, the report written by IBM a few years ago talked about AI and suggested that most people misinterpret the phrase AI. They think we're talking about artificial intelligence when 99% of the time we're not. We're actually talking about augmented intelligence. The difference being that augmented intelligence is just simply doing something quicker, faster, error-free than perhaps a human counterpart can, but it isn't truly intelligent in that it isn't thinking for itself. So that I thought was quite interesting. And the second one was some research into the whole idea of hype. Gartner Research did an article on hype, which said that product innovations, things like self-driving cars or the whole sort of AI in the world that we're in now, tend to follow a typical progression of innovation. They start with over-enthusiasm, and then they enter a period of disillusionment, and then there's an eventual understanding of the relevance of this innovation and its role in the market. And in a 2019 MIT lecture, it was suggested that we are at the peak of this inflated expectation and approaching the trough of disillusionment. But I'm not sure that that's 100% going to be replicated, because I think certainly in the early days, AI, RegTech, FinTech it was suggested that it would solve world peace. It would be the solution to all of our problems. But I think that most people were grounded enough to realize that that may be stretching the point a little bit. So I think that the trough of disillusionment won't be quite so deep, because a lot of people were sensible enough to realize that isn't the case. It does, however, project and provide potentially some significant easing of some issues. So setting the scene, we're very lucky to be joined today by Sarah and Dickson. Perhaps, Sarah, I could come to you first. You could give a quick introduction of yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So I set up a business called ChangeGap last year. So we're actually a RegTech vendor, but also a consultancy. And I think the blend of those two areas together is proving, very valuable to clients. Especially, that's a very good intro, Andrew. And hype is definitely the thing. So we're seeing a lot of need for awareness and level setting, and that can help mitigate that, because I think it's like any technology. It doesn't have to be AI. You need to set the expectations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Dickson, would you like to follow on?
Hey, hi everyone. This is Dickson Tang, based in Singapore, originally from Hong Kong. I'm a full-time keynote speaker, author, and consultant around creative leadership. And I'm also the author of this book, Leadership for Future of Work, 9 Ways to Build Career Edge Over Robots with Human Creativity. So great to be here today, and thanks, Andrew, for organizing this. Thank you.
The thanks have to go to RegPac, to Mona and her team. But thank you for that. And yes, as I said to you in the startup, I will mention your book again later, and obviously the check can come in the post or cash. I don't mind, Dickson, whichever you prefer. So we started with the principles. I think it's a great place to start as a compliance practitioner. The principles. Let's get the principles sorted first. And some people are suggesting there is a fear of going early into this whole piece. There's plenty of evidence historically of people investing an awful lot of money in ideas that just don't take off, or they go off in a different direction. Sarah, I think you were going to give us some comment on that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's fear in two ways. One, fear of going first and getting it wrong, or not knowing what to do, but also FOMO. There's a lot of money being spent and people rushing into it, because they think they need to, they're going to miss out if they don't. So, yeah, and the other thing around fear, I think there's very good reason to be fearful, particularly where AI is being used, to influence decisions, and that can lead to the introduction of bias, unfair bias. And we're seeing a growth of AI or AI techniques in HR, recruitment, credit, financial decisions. So that there is an element of fear that's legitimate, but also I think we need to be careful, because if we put the right things in place, then we can mitigate that fear.
That's great. Thank you very much. You're right. There are various different sorts of fear that are involved in what's going on. I'm a great watcher of movies, sci-fi movies, and some of them instill fear, some of them instill confidence. Sort of the fear of adopting artificial intelligence. One of the issues that certainly is coming out is this fear that that's the end of the world for us as human beings, that we won't be needed in the workplace. And Dickson, part of your book, as you said, 9 ways to build a career edge over robots, I thought was a really interesting title, an interesting choice to try and quell some of the fears that people might have. So maybe just want to give us an overview of what it is that you're driving at in your book.
Oh, great question, Andrew. Yes, there was a lot of fear around the disruption by AI and machines and robots, and a lot of people worry about, hey, the jobs I'm having right now may be at risk, right? But on the other hand, there are also new types of jobs coming up. So I would say the risk level about the job loss is kind of like reduced. Right? And my take on the future of work is, in the future of work, it requires all of us, regardless of which industry, which job role you're in, requires all of us to be creative and innovative. That is the main direction you need to head to. And for most of the standardized tasks, try to outsource it to robots, automation, and technology as quickly as possible. But we have a little problem here is the traditional school system we went through, or at least the school system I went through, did not really prepare us to be creative and innovative and forward-looking, right? So that's why there's a little gap. Future needs us to be creative and innovative, but the school system not supplying that, right? So that's a big gap that I want to close it, right, together with the industry partners.
That's a fascinating insight, and it's something that I experience as a manager and a recruiting manager, where you're requiring people to do a role that requires them to come up with a solution. So I can give you the tools, but I can't show you how to build it because we don't know what it is that we need building yet. And it's the application that sometimes it is missing. It's, well, you need to show me how to do it. Well, I can't, because it's about strategy, about setting levels. So that's quite interesting. And interestingly also is the area where, as yet, there's a difference between AI and augmented intelligence as we understand it, what you refer to as augmented intelligence. One other question that I wanted to sort of throw out there for the moment is, it's going to be very difficult to implement AI, true artificial intelligence, until we can agree on a moral compass, because somebody needs to set the moral compass for artificial intelligence. And it's crazy little things like, the best example I could come up with, my daughter is a vegetarian, and she thinks it's wrong for me to eat meat, but I don't. So which one of us is right? And if we were to program AI, which one of us would take the lead? So even as something as simple as that presents a huge challenge. So I think we could say to people that the days of AI coming in and completely replacing the ability to think, we're not there yet. That is the stuff currently for the future. The other issue that people are talking about, and Sarah, you alluded to this, is it would be very easy, FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh, I need to get in there and spend an awful lot of money and then find out I've gone nowhere, or as I say, down the wrong route. So we talked about managing cost. Do you have any tips or suggestions for people in terms of managing their cost of implementation?
Yeah, I think there's two themes, Andrew. One is, as I said in the intro, implementing AI, you should follow the same principles as implementing technology or any significant initiative or program. Know what you're doing and the purpose, and get people on board. So you've got a clear path, so you don't get halfway through or 90% through, and then someone says, "But I thought we were building X." So yeah, common basic principles, and it's interesting because I've certainly witnessed that the more advanced technology or advanced nature of what you're implementing, the rules tend to go out of the window faster. People get very excited and they forget the basics. So that's one. And the other thing is, I think this is another theme, whether we're thinking about financial crime or artificial intelligence, something really big, you shouldn't look to do it as a single organization. You should look more towards external and community ecosystems for guidance and convergence, particularly on, as you say, the more compass and ethics, and fairness is an interesting word. So through my work with a great startup organization called We and AI, they have so many experts in this field, and one of the things I learned there was there's 23 definitions of fairness. So so much time is rightly at the moment being spent on trying to get to the bottom or nearer definitions, but equally there needs to be decisions. So I think the more we talk about this and collaborate across organizations and regions, the more we can save money, I think.
Great, thank you. I mean, so what you're counseling is to treat this not really massively different from any other large investment spend project, whether you're installing a new processing system or whatever, which is to understand what it is that you want first, what is it going, and then what is it able to provide. So there's that kind of gap analysis that needs to be carried out. And then if the two are in proximity to each other, then great.
And start small, prototype. Don't sort of go for the big bang. Start small.
Yeah. So again, maybe there's an old saying, isn't it? Don't bite off more than you can chew. So maybe break this thing down and then keep testing it and keep measuring it. And the other issue is because it's dynamic, and according to Moore's law, computing power doubles every 18 months, which means the rate of change and innovation is so rapid. If you try and do something 3, 4, 5 year project, by the time you get halfway through, what you started out is old news. Interesting. Dickson, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think one of the key things here is we need to be always alert about what are some of the new stuff, right? The new stuff could be new trends or new opportunity or new threats. So for example, right, I believe that in terms of risk management or risk calculation, right, it will go to machines quite easily. But in terms of identifying the risk or being alert, right, to the risk, right, that will be the job of we human beings. Right? So for example, right, nowadays, if you look at the risk management, right, so let's say if you want to identify, right, the corruption risk, right, so is there a risk that certain businesses transact, right, through some corruption, right? At the same time, right, you might also need to be very alert to, okay, what kind of new technology is available there, right? Is it Bitcoin or other new financial instrument, right, that will potentially be the channel of corruption? So I think by keeping open mind to new stuff, new technology, new trends, and be able to be alert to new risks. That is fundamental and key to our work.
That's a brilliant segue into the question that we've got from the audience, which is that introducing new technology usually requires a change in people's day-to-day habits. So how do you go about deprogramming old habits and introducing new habits in terms of your workforce? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question, right? How to develop a new habit, right? So this is something I'm always learning as well. But I think I can share with you guys like one simple technique that I use is to program your mind, right? To stop saying cannot, start to say why not. Okay, stop saying cannot, right? Start saying why not. What I realize is just a small shift in terms of wording, right? But by saying why not, right, it opens up myself, right, to new opportunity and new possibility, right? So I think if you would like to develop a new habit, right, stop saying cannot. Oh, it's very difficult. It can't be done, right? Instead, say why not.
So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I can see lots of things going up. Thank you. It is something that's bugged me all my working career. When I try to organise a meeting with somebody and they say, "Oh, I can't make that," and the truth is, well, you can. You're just choosing not to. You believe there's something else more important. Because I guarantee this: if I was to give you $100 million to come to that meeting, you would make it. So it's something I've tried all sort of my life to say, stop this habit of I can't do it. I won't do it is one option because I think something else is more important. So that's a really, really good tip, I think. And being open-minded to the developments and the rate of change. And I can say this now because I'm getting on in years. I love the fact that it's changing all the time. You can teach old dogs new tricks. And it's important, particularly for the leaders, those that have been around for a while, to accept this is coming. Make no mistake, this is not something you can hide away from. It is coming. You can either get on board now and shape it and direct it, or you wait and you play catch up. But by then, don't complain about the state of things because you had a chance to influence it and you didn't take it. So it is about people at all levels setting the right journey and then sort of embarking on that journey. Thank you so much. On that note, we've got literally 2 minutes left. It would be Give me an example of a good, strong business advantage for early adoption of AI.
So maybe I'll go first. So I think it gives you the chance to learn. All right. So if you do it in the right way, you can learn, practice, and then be ahead. And I love what you said, Dickson and Andrew, on changing habits. I think it's the art of the possible. You need to be positive, surround yourself with positive people. Like, what can we do?
Great. I think take an example from what the government of Singapore is doing, this idea of a regulatory sandbox. Let's have a little area where we can play around that isn't going to impact upon the business. So I see a lot of that coming in people's future. Let's try it. Let's make sure that it actually works before we then go and put it into place. So practice makes perfect, as they say. We've run out of time. We could talk about this for the rest of the day, I'm sure. So it just remains for me to say thanks very much to RegTech Revolution for having me here. Thanks massively, of course, to Sarah and Dickson for the work you did before and for the work that you've just done now. And of course, once again, as always, thank you to the audience, because without you turning up, there'd be no point in us standing here. Thanks very much. I'll hand back over to RegTech now.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to all the panelists for their sharing the insights and perspectives on this really, I think, what is very deeply relevant to a lot of people now. People are worried about their jobs with all of this economic shock, but of course, things are getting better. Now, I think moving on, we're looking at the next panel. So for those of our attendees and other participants, the next panel is going to dive into RegTech ecosystems around the world. I think that will be, of course, covering, I think, some of the different, since there's so much of a difference between Europe, Asia, and even North America given the dynamic activity of the different hubs. So on that note, I will thank again the panelists for their contributions and encourage you to network and explore the different ecosystems of the world. Cheers. See you soon.